This discussion challenges the simple question of how many of Leonardo da Vinci's inventions are used today, proposing that to count them is to miss the point entirely. While many of his most famous designs, from the flying machine to the armored tank, were magnificent but ultimately unworkable failures, his true enduring legacy isn't found in physical objects. Instead, his most profound contributions were his revolutionary methods, a new way of seeing that fused art with science, a relentless drive for empirical observation, and an unparalleled ability to perceive the world as an interconnected system. But if his iconic machines were stillborn concepts, how precisely did these ghosts of his mind survive the centuries to become the invisible architecture of our modern world?
Okay, let's unpack this. We've all done it, haven't we? You've scrolled through an article, maybe visited a museum, or just seen one of those captivating images online, Leonardo da Vinci's amazing flying machines, or those incredible designs for war devices, even his diving suits.
Yeah, they're iconic.
Exactly. And this question just pops into your head. How many of these things actually made it? How many of these, well, almost fantastical inventions are actually still being used, like today, 5 centuries on, in our world?
Right. In the age of microchips and space travel, it seems like a fair question.
It feels like a really natural curiosity, doesn't it? You want a clear tally, some kind of satisfying list that just confirms his genius, tells you exactly where his brilliance fits into, the modern world.
Checklist.
A checklist, yeah. We want to put a neat little check mark next to each idea, but what if that very urge, that desire for a simple count, is actually the wrong way to think about it? What if it's the wrong question?
What's fascinating here is precisely that. Framing Leonardo's legacy as just, a tally of successful inventions really is asking the wrong question and figuring out why. Well, that's absolutely key to grasping his real impact.
Okay.
Think of it less like taking inventory in a museum and maybe more like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like asking how many single drops of water from some tiny mountain spring actually ended up in the middle of the ocean.
Interesting analogy.
The drops themselves, they're gone, really. Lost, dispersed, soaked into the ground, evaporated, rained back down. They don't exist as single drops in the ocean. But the river they formed, well, that river carved valleys, didn't it? It irrigated plains, it shaped the whole landscape, changed how civilizations developed.
So the individual contribution is lost, but the overall effect is huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Leonardo's legacy isn't some dusty display case full of finished gadgets we can point to and say, there it is, number 37. It's much more like an atmosphere we still breathe, maybe. A fundamental current that still guides how we think, how we create, how we even interact with the world.
Right. So it's less tangible.
Much less tangible. So our real mission in this deep dive, it's not about counting artifacts. It's about understanding the how. How does a mind from, 1519, still whisper in the design of our machines today? How does it still profoundly influence our art? And how does it structure the very way we do science and discovery?
How did those private notebooks become blueprints for a future he couldn't even imagine?
Precisely. And a future maybe he wouldn't have entirely wanted in some ways. We're not just looking at history here. We're going on a journey into the nature of an idea itself, how it gets born, how it lives, how it sometimes dies, which can be beautiful too, and yet how it keeps haunting and shaping our reality centuries later.
That's a really powerful way to shift perspective. So we're moving beyond the physical things, the stuff that grabs your eye first, and diving into the, almost ethereal ways Leonardo shaped how we actually think.
Exactly, the thinking process itself.
And we'll try to take some pretty complex ideas here and, simplify them, pull out those aha moments, make them really easy to grasp. The goal is for you listening to really connect with just how deep and subtle his influence runs.
Absolutely.
So let's start our journey, not with what survived, maybe, but by heading into what we could call the Cathedral of Impossible Wings, a place where the ambition was just sky high, but reality, reality often kept its feet planted firmly on the ground. Okay, let's paint a picture. Imagine you're walking through a big, quiet museum exhibit. It's all about Leonardo da Vinci's work. What do you actually see?
Not finished machines, usually.
Right. You're not looking at gleaming working machines humming away, or even, complex prototypes that look like they're ready for a test flight tomorrow. Instead, what you see are rooms filled with these beautiful, incredibly detailed drawings.
Sketches on paper, often that kind of old honey color now.
Yeah, exactly. And they show incredible things. giant crossbows, multi-barreled guns, these amazing flying contraptions. But here's the first, maybe slightly humbling truth we have to face. If we define invention in the simplest way, like a device that was built and actually worked back then, or even a direct, usable blueprint ready to go.
A blueprint you could just hand to a craftsman.
Right. Then Leonardo's score on that front, his tally of successful deployable inventions is, well, honestly, it's perilously close to zero.
That's a really crucial point and often overlooked. And the ornithopter is probably the most famous example of this whole paradox. You look at those incredible drawings.
They are breathtaking.
Absolutely. Meticulously drawn bat-like wings, articulated like he was an anatomist, designed to copy how birds fly. It's just this object of intense intellectual effort and real beauty. It still fascinates us.
Yeah.
But purely as a machine for a human to fly in his time.
It wouldn't work.
It was, quite simply, a magnificent total failure. It could never have flown. And maybe surprisingly, even if you build it today with modern lightweight materials, the basic design, relying only on human muscle power, still impossible for a person to operate.
So wait, it wasn't just about the materials he had back then? Like, if you'd had carbon fiber, it would have worked?
No, not at all. The fundamental problem was the sheer muscle power needed. For a human pilot to flap those big wings hard enough and fast enough to actually generate lift, well, it just massively exceeds what a human body can do.
We don't have that bird power to weight ratio.
Not even close. And yeah, on top of that, the materials he imagined, wood, linen, sinew, they would have just splintered, torn, buckled under the huge strain. It shows his genius in observing how birds flew, the principles. But it's also a stark reminder of the physical limits he was up against trying to copy it with human strength.
Okay, so it sounds like a magnificent failure, right, on the surface. But he was Leonardo da Vinci. It's hard to believe he was totally unaware of these huge problems. What do his notebooks tell us? Did he know? Was he just dreaming, or was he grappling with it?
That's a really sharp question, because the notebooks show this fascinating internal struggle. They're absolutely filled with what you can only call frantic calculations. Page after page studying bird flight, endless variations on wing designs, careful measurements of wing area versus how strong a human might be.
So he wasn't just doodling?
Not at all. He wasn't just sketching some fantasy machine. He was in this deep, intellectual, maybe even spiritual wrestling match with gravity itself. The ornithopter, seen that way, isn't just a prototype device. It's more like a prayer drawn in ink, a testament to this incredible human desire to overcome a natural law that just seemed impossible.
He kept trying, iterating on paper.
Exactly. He iterated, he experimented visually, he questioned, always digging for the mathematical, the mechanical truth, even when the immediate reality was this huge physical wall. And that relentless pursuit, that willingness to tackle the impossible head-on, that's where the real genius shines, much more than a non-flying machine itself.
Here's where it gets really interesting, especially when we will look at another one of his famous designs, the armored car.
Ah, yes, the precursor to the tank.
Right. This amazing visionary thing, a circular kind of turtle-shelled monster bristling with cannons, and the drawings for it are incredibly detailed. He thought about everything. The best firing angles for the cannons, how thick the armor should be and where, even the psychology of it, how terrifying it would look to the enemy. It wasn't just a weapon. It was meant to be this statement of overwhelming force.
And yet, it too has this fascinating, almost baffling flaw hidden inside. If you look really closely at the internal mechanics he drew, specifically the gearing system for the hand cranks that were supposed to make it move. Yeah. You find this critical, almost comical error. The way he designed the gears meant the front wheels and the back wheels would actually turn in opposite direction.
No, seriously.
Seriously, imagine the moment they tried to engage it, the whole thing would just grind itself instantly to a complete shuddering stop. Right there. It would have become just this useless monument of wood and iron.
So why? Why would he do that?
Well, that's the puzzle that scholars have debated for ages. Was it just a simple mistake? An oversight from a mind juggling? I mean, literally thousands of complex ideas simultaneously.
Yeah.
Or, and this is where it gets intriguing, was it maybe a deliberate, subtle flaw put there by a man who, even though he designed war machines, apparently hated war?
So he sabotaged his own designs?
Some speculate, yeah. Maybe he subtly crippled it to make sure it could never actually be used for its destructive purpose. We just don't know. The mystery's still there, this little visual riddle in the drawings. But the result is the same. The machine was effectively still born. A powerful idea, maybe, but made impotent by one crucial detail.
And it wasn't just those two famous ones. His notebooks are crammed with other well, glorious impossibilities, right? There's the giant crossbow,
Huge thing, yeah.
capable of launching massive stones or bolts, the multi-barreled organ gun, like an early machine gun, the scythe chariot, designed to just mow down soldiers. They look amazing on paper, almost like something from a fantasy novel.
Absolutely. But they weren't really inventions in the modern sense, were they? Not like, here's a solution to a problem we have right now, let's build 50 of them.
No, they felt more like thought experiments.
Exactly. They were the physical, drawn-out form of these huge questions he was asking himself. What if a man could actually fly? What if a fortress could move across a battlefield? What if you could multiply one soldier's killing power 100 times over? They were explorations of the possible, or maybe the impossible, not practical blueprints for immediate construction.
This really hammers home that first point, doesn't it? That humbling truth about his tangible legacy.
It really does. If your definition of invention is strictly limited to things that were actually built and worked back then, or if you need a perfect, ready-to-go blueprint for something later, well, the number of Leonardo's inventions still directly used today is, like you said, basically zero.
All those thousands of pages in his notebook, the codices.
They're like this vast, intricate cathedral built to house impossible wings. It's a testament to the heroic effort, sometimes beautifully imagined, but often the frustrating failure of a mind pushing against the huge physical and tech limits of his time.
He just didn't have the right tools.
He didn't. He lacked the basic power sources we rely on. No internal combustion engines, no electric motors, and he didn't have the materials. No high tensile steel, no lightweight alloys, no carbon fiber. He was essentially a man dreaming of spaceships in an age of wooden carts pulled by oxen. But to dismiss him for these failures, or judge his genius just by the lack of physical objects that survived, that's completely missing the point of his work. The real ghost of Leonardo isn't in the amazing machine that never got built. The ghost is in the relentless desire to build it, that consuming curiosity, that boundless ambition, and the methodical questioning that drove every single sketch, whether it was practical right then or not. That's the legacy.
Okay, so if we're not finding Leonardo's big, lasting legacy in the physical hardware, the machines, the prototypes that never quite made it, then where do we find him? The sources we looked at really point towards the software, not the objects, but his method, his unique way of looking at the world.
Exactly, his approach.
Maybe his true foundational invention wasn't an object at all, but a way of thinking. Like he invented a new way of seeing.
Precisely. And to really get this, we have to kind of peel back the layers of fame, the artist, the engineer. Before the Mona Lisa, before the flying machines, Leonardo was, maybe above all else, an observer like almost no other.
Okay.
And to grasp just how radical and dedicated this was, let's try to imagine something. Picture yourself, say, in a Florentine morgue around 1500.
Okay, not a pleasant thought, but...
No, definitely not. Imagine the cold, that waxy chill, the smell, probably overpowering. And there's Leonardo, maybe by just flickering candlelight, carefully peeling back the skin, muscle by muscle, on a human body.
Which was completely forbidden back then, right? Heretical, even.
Absolutely. Forbidden by the church, taboo in society. He was taking huge risks. But for him, it wasn't disrespectful. It was this profound, almost sacred study. He often had to work in secret.
Driven by what? Just curiosity?
An insatiable need to understand how life worked. He'd spend days, weeks, maybe months with one body, tracing every single muscle, every nerve, every tiny blood vessel. And his pen, drawing these things, moved with the same incredible delicacy and precision he used for the Mona Lisa's smile. And think about the conditions. No modern preservation. It must have been incredibly difficult. But this painstaking, obsessive process led to genuinely groundbreaking discoveries. He didn't just draw the heart. He correctly figured out its function as a four-chambered pump with valves to stop blood flowing backwards.
Centuries before William Harvey.
Centuries before Harvey published his work on circulation in 1628. It's astonishing. And he drew the fetus curled up in the womb, this incredibly tender yet scientifically accurate image based on his own dissections. It captured this secret beginning of life.
So it wasn't just idle curiosity.
No way. This was rigorous, almost fanatical data collection, relentless empirical observation, systematic visual recording, and that fed everything else he did, from his art to his engineering.
And then it becomes so clear how that scientific observation connects directly to his art, why it's still so powerful, like the Mona Lisa's smile.
Right.
Like, why does it seem so alive, almost shifting?
Because he knew the tiny muscles around the mouth and eyes that create expression. He literally knew the anatomy of a smile. And his famous sfumato, that soft, hazy blurring of edges.
It wasn't just an artistic trick.
It was deeply informed by how light actually works, how the eye perceives things. It gives his figures that almost breathing quality. And think about the Last Supper. Why do the figures feel so dynamic, so full of emotion and movement?
Because he knew how bodies move.
Exactly. He understood the skeleton, how a torso twists when someone feels betrayed, how hands gesture in despair, how weight shifts when someone recoils. His art, when you look closely, wasn't magic. It was applied science, fueled by intense first-hand observation.
That changes how you see his paintings.
It really does. And this unified gaze, this absolute refusal to separate art and science, that's arguably his most revolutionary and lasting legacy. He had this incredible knack for seeing connections everywhere.
Like the river eddy and the braided hair.
Exactly. He'd see the same spiral pattern. He'd study water turbulence, how water flows around rocks, and then apply those same principles to how air flows over a bird's wing. He famously wrote, "To be a painter, you must be a good anatomist." But he could just as easily have said, "To be a good engineer, you need to be a poet." Or, "To be a scientist, you need to be an artist." This seamless cross-disciplinary thinking wasn't just a quirk, it was his superpower. It was how his mind worked.
Okay, so with this new perspective, this unified gaze, we can look back at some of those failed inventions differently, like the aerial screw.
The helicopter precursor.
Did you invent the helicopter?
Right.
No, not really. But he spent ages watching maple seeds, the little samaras spinning down.
He did.
Yeah.
Hours watching them.
And from that simple observation of nature, he sketched the aerial screw. And crucially, it perfectly isolated the core principle, rotational lift. He didn't give us the machine, but he identified and drew the natural mechanism that makes helicopters and drones possible today.
He nailed the principle.
And what about the parachute? You said earlier he sort of did invent it.
Yes, in a really remarkable way. His sketch of that pyramid-shaped canvas thing held stiff by a wooden frame, that is the first known design for a parachute, ever. And he even calculated the dimensions he thought would work, allowing someone to jump from a great height without injury.
Maybe not the most efficient design, but the concept was there.
The core concept using air resistance to slow a fall was absolutely spot on. And here's the amazing part, almost unbelievable. Back in 2000, a British skydiver, Adrian Nicholas, he actually built a parachute using Leonardo's exact sketch and only materials available back then.
Did it work?
He jumped from a hot air balloon and it worked perfectly, landed safely. So the ghost, turns out, knew his physics pretty well, centuries before anyone could actually build and test it properly.
That's incredible. It's like a message across time.
It really is. So you see, the count of his contributions totally shifts now. We're not just counting finished objects anymore. We're counting fundamental principles and methods that are woven into our world.
Like the ball bearing.
Exactly. He sketched the concept using balls to reduce friction for his machines. Today, that simple idea is fundamental. It's in almost every single moving machine on Earth. Your car engine, your computer's hard drive, even tiny watches.
Things we totally take for granted.
Completely. And his detailed studies of friction, hydraulics, how liquids move and exert force, mechanics, levers, gears, forces, all that laid this huge invisible groundwork. Others built on it for centuries. So maybe he wasn't the architect who put up the first walls of our modern world.
But he drew the first maps.
He was its first and most insightful surveyor, yeah. He drew the maps of the invisible forces and principles that governed everything, long before many even understood those forces existed.
Okay, let's peel back another layer here, maybe go even deeper. Because the more you look at his work, all those notebooks, Leonardo seems less like an inventor of just things and more like a designer of systems.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
His mind just seemed to operate on a different scale, didn't it? Always seeing connections, these intricate relationships, where most people back then probably just saw separate objects or problems.
Absolutely. He had this holistic view.
And this ability, this interconnected perspective, maybe that's his most subtle, but also his most profoundly modern contribution. It feels like the ultimate aha moment about him. He saw the world as this giant interconnected machine.
That nails it. And his cartography, his map making, is a perfect example, even though it seems miles away from flying machines or anatomy. Remember, in 1502, he was working for Caesar Borgia as a military engineer.
Right, the infamous Borgia.
And Borgia tasks him with making a map of the city of Imola. Now, maps back then, they were mostly pictorial, kind of impressionistic views of a city, often from a slightly elevated angle, more like art than data.
Pretty, but not that useful for planning a siege.
Exactly. Leonardo did something completely different. totally radical. He didn't just sketch it from memory or observation. He physically walked the entire city. He measured distances, probably with some kind of early odometer. He took precise angular bearings using instruments he likely designed himself.
He gathered actual data.
Tons of it. And then he translated all that raw empirical data into a top-down iconographic map, a plan view. It was so incredibly accurate, it's mind-blowing. You could apparently still use it for navigation today.
Wow.
It wasn't just a picture. It was an early form of data visualization, a strategic tool. Borgia could look at it and understand the city's defenses, its weak points, how people and resources move through it. That map is the direct ancestor of every Google map on your phone.
Yeah.
Every city plan, every GIS system we use now for resource management.
Yeah.
He basically invented the modern analytical map.
That's huge. And this idea of seeing the world as an interconnected system, it seems to run through everything he did, right? From the tiny details up to the biggest picture. He famously wrote about the microcosm and the macrocosm.
Yes, that the Earth itself is like a living body.
And the human body is like a small model of the Earth. He wrote something like, "The waters of the sea move like the blood in our bodies, and rivers are veins, tides are a heartbeat."
That's the one.
What was behind that? Was it just poetry, philosophy? Or was it rooted in his scientific observation?
It was this amazing blend of both, I think. A truly holistic view. And yeah, while comparing rivers to veins might sound a bit like Renaissance mysticism to us today.
It sounded a little mystical.
Right. But hidden inside that comparison is the seed of a profoundly modern idea, systems thinking. It's the absolute root of modern ecology. It foreshadows things like the Gaia hypothesis, the idea that the Earth's living things and non-living surroundings interact to form this single, complex, self-regulating system.
So he was intuiting ecology centuries ago.
His intuition, 500 years back, was remarkably close to this view, seeing the planet not just as a collection of rocks and water and trees, but as this single, incredibly complex, interconnected system. That was an idea way, way ahead of its time. We're only really grappling with it properly now in science.
And he didn't just think about it. He tried to apply this systems thinking to huge practical projects too, like his work on the Sforza monument.
The giant bronze horse.
It wasn't just about making it look right, was it? His studies included designing a whole new way to cast this massive thing in one go.
Exactly. A revolutionary method for casting it in a single piece, mainly for structural integrity, to make sure this enormous bronze statue would actually stand up and hold together. That was an engineering feat in itself, thinking about the whole system of casting, cooling, support.
And then there was the Arno River project, his plan to divert the river.
Oh yeah, a hugely ambitious project he worked on with Machiavelli, actually. It required this incredibly complex understanding of geology, how the land was formed, hydrology, how the water would flow, and engineering on a scale nobody had really tried since ancient Rome.
It failed in the end, didn't it?
It did fail, yeah. Politics, logistics, probably just the sheer difficulty for the technology of the time, but the ambition behind it, the very idea of trying to re-engineer an entire landscape, seeing the river, the land, the flow, the towns, all as one single dynamic system you could modify. That is startlingly contemporary. That required thinking about water flow, soil erosion, labor, economics, all as one big interconnected puzzle.
That kind of thinking feels very 21st century.
This, I really believe, is the Leonardo who most strongly resonates today, the one who kind of haunts the 21st century. We live in an age completely defined by complex systems, right? Global finance, the internet, climate models, the human genome.
All incredibly complex networks.
Exactly. And the biggest challenges we face now, they're almost never simple problems with single objects. They're problems of intricate relationships, where tweaking one thing can have massive, unexpected effects somewhere else. And here was this guy 5 centuries ago who just instinctively thought that way.
He didn't put things in boxes.
He didn't compartmentalize knowledge at all. For him, the curve of a flower petal, the flow of a river, the orbit of a planet, they were all just different expressions of the same underlying mathematical harmony, the same universal principles. He was the ultimate interdisciplinary thinker, long before that was even a concept, in a world that was busy drawing lines between subjects, lines he just ignored.
We're only just catching up to him now, in some ways.
We really are. In our most advanced fields, with all the focus now on interdisciplinary research and holistic approaches, we're only just beginning to truly embrace a way of thinking that, for Leonardo, seems to have been as natural as breathing. He had this level of conceptual integration that we've only recently started to value again.
Okay, so let's circle back. Let's return to that initial question you, the listener, might have had, but now armed with this richer perspective on Leonardo's legacy. How many of his actual inventions are used today?
Right, the count.
If we're being strict, talking about his specific physical designs, the things he drew, well, the answer is still maybe one or two, resurrected sometimes as curiosities or for very specific uses. The parachute obviously proved its worth.
The principle of the ball bearing, certainly.
And maybe a few others, like that modular bridge design he did. Apparently, military engineers have actually used that basic concept over the centuries because it's simple and effective. But really, the list of direct physical inventions still in common, everyday use, it's pretty small. Almost insultingly small, given his reputation. It's not the long list we might have wanted.
But and this is the crucial pivot.
Yeah.
This is where changing the definition changes everything.
Yeah.
If you broaden the question, if you ask how many of his methods and principles are in use today, how many of his ways of thinking are fundamental to our modern world?
Then the answer changes completely.
Completely. It becomes almost everywhere. Ubiquitous, pervasive in nearly every field you can think of. Just consider this. Every single time an engineer today sits down at a computer and uses a CAD program, a computer-aided design tool.
Which is all the time now.
Right. Modeling a machine in 3D, rotating it on screen, dissecting it virtually, refining how the parts work together long before they even touch metal or plastic. They are fundamentally thinking, seeing, and designing like Leonardo. They're using his iterative, visual, analytical process just in the digital realm.
Or think about, say, a biologist or a medical illustrator. When they create those incredibly detailed anatomical diagrams to explain how some part of the body works, layer by precise layer, aiming for scientific accuracy, but also clarity, even beauty.
They're walking right in his footsteps.
Exactly. Applying that same intense observation and clear illustration method he pioneered to unlock the secrets of life. Their work is a direct descendant of his dissection drawings.
Or take a systems analyst. When they map out a complex network, could be an electrical grid to find weak spots, could be the global financial system to see where pressure builds up, could be a city's transport network to make it flow better.
They're doing what he did with Imola and the Arno.
They are absolutely echoing his groundbreaking work, analyzing connections, looking for patterns, trying to predict how the system behaves. It's the same mode of thinking. And even today, think about artists studying physics to get the light just right, or roboticists studying biology, biomimicry, to make robots move more naturally or efficiently.
Copying nature's designs.
They are practicing his unique fusion of disciplines. That seamless blend of art and science was his signature move.
So his real inventions, they weren't things you could touch or patent.
Exactly. They were much deeper. They were maybe the scaffolding for modern thought, the invisible infrastructure that so much of our progress relies on.
So what were they? Can we list them?
We can try. His true lasting inventions were things like, number one, the absolute importance of empirical observation. Just looking, really looking at the world with open eyes without prejudice. Two, the practice of relentless questioning, never just accepting things, always digging deeper. Three, the need to visualize thought through drawing, making ideas visible, testable, communicable. Four, understanding the world as an interconnected system, seeing the relationships, not just the parts. And five, maybe most importantly, the fusion of art and science into one single, powerful way of investigating reality.
Those aren't things you can put in a museum display case.
Not at all. They're much more profound, more fundamental than any object. They are, you could say, the invisible architecture of the modern mind itself. They are, in a very real sense, the operating system that a huge amount of our scientific, technological, and creative progress still runs on today.
So he is the ghost in our machine.
He is the ghost in our machine, yes. But not because he gave us the actual gears and levers. He's the ghost because he taught us how to think about the machine in the first place. He gave us, all of us who try to create or discover or build, he gave us a kind of license.
A license to be curious.
The license to be endlessly curious, yes. Yeah. To dissect things, literally or figuratively, to draw our ideas, to connect things that seem unrelated, and crucially, maybe, a license to fail with magnificent ambition. To know that the attempt, the process of trying and questioning, is just as valuable, maybe more valuable, than getting it right the first time. He normalized this incredibly powerful way of thinking.
And here, maybe this is where we find a quieter, more unsettling current in his legacy, a more somber aspect that kind of challenges our easy admiration.
There is another side to it.
That same incredibly sharp, analytical way of looking at things. The gaze that saw beauty in a dissected heart, or the complex pattern in a river eddy. Isn't that also disturbingly the same gaze that lets us see the world as something to be, well, taken apart, a system to be engineered, managed, controlled, and maybe exploited?
This definitely brings us to the more complex, maybe even the darker side of his influence.
Yeah.
And it's something the sources we looked at acknowledge. His ambitious dream of diverting the Arno River for human benefit.
Yes.
Well, you could argue it's the direct conceptual ancestor of every massive mega dam project ever built. And while those projects might provide power or water, they've also tragically displaced huge numbers of people, completely altered ecosystems, changed the planet's landscape forever, often with consequences nobody foresaw.
Right, the unintended consequences.
Exactly. And similarly, those amazing, terrifying weapons of war, he designed the tank, the giant crossbow, the multi-barreled gun. However reluctant he might personally have felt about war, those designs are undeniably part of the long, dark trajectory of industrialized conflict, always pushing the boundaries of how efficiently humans can harm each other.
It fed into that whole history.
It did. And that relentless drive to know, to uncover nature's secrets, to master them, the very thing we admire in him as the ultimate scientist, isn't that the same drive that has arguably pushed us as a species towards the edge of ecological disaster as we manipulate natural systems without fully understanding the incredibly delicate balance?
So he's not just an inspiration, but maybe an omen.
He stands right there at the dawn of the modern age, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Not just as this brilliant visionary, but also as a brilliant and, in some ways, a terrifying omen for what humanity would become. He seems to represent the full, awe-inspiring potential, but also the inherent danger of human ingenuity itself.
Our greatest gift and our biggest flaw.
You could say that. He embodies our species' greatest gift, that incredible boundless curiosity, that hunger to understand that refuses limits, but maybe also our most dangerous flaw. This deep desire not just to understand the world, but to remake it in our own image, often without truly grasping the intricate long-term consequences of what we're doing.
This raises an important question.
It really does. What responsibility comes with that kind of insight, with that power to understand and ultimately to manipulate? Where is the line between brilliant innovation and dangerous hubris? It's a question Leonardo embodies, maybe more than anyone. #outro integer.
So what does this all mean? For us, listening now, we started off asking a very simple, almost administrative question. How many inventions survive? But at the end of this deep dive, trying to count his inventions really does feel like a fool's errand, doesn't it? It's like trying to simplify something immense, to tame his sprawling, uncontainable legacy, make it fit neatly in a box.
You just can't quantify him.
No. The truth is, Leonardo da Vinci cannot be quantified. He's not a list of achievements you can tick off. He's not a collection of objects. He's more like a presence, a disquieting but also endlessly inspiring echo that just resonates down through the centuries, still shaping how we see and interact with our world.
He left questions, not just answers.
Exactly. He left behind not a neat set of answers, but this set of profoundly challenging, almost audacious questions that we as humanity are still trying to answer, still grappling with, still trying to fully understand. His notebooks aren't the end of a story. They are, arguably, the most profound and beautiful beginning in the history of human thought.
You came looking for a number, you leave with a mirror.
Say more about that.
Because the ghost of Leonardo isn't just hiding in our machines or tucked away in dusty textbooks. It's right here, living and breathing, inside the restless, questioning, creative spirit, and yes, maybe even the destructive spirit that drives our whole modern world. He opened a door. A huge transformative door to a fundamentally new way of seeing, thinking, and engaging with reality itself.
And we all rushed through it.
And we, his unwitting heirs, armed with his methods, driven by his spirit, we all just rushed headlong through that door, eager to explore everything on the other side.
We have yet to really pause and look back halfway to see if we can, or maybe even if we should, ever close that door again.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end, and see you in the next video.